True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been, and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all, was my sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say exactly when the idea first entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was the eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye, the film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, by degree, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch on his door and opened it, oh, so gently. And when there was an opening sufficient enough for my head, I first put in a dark lantern, closed, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to have seen how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so as not to disturb the old man's sleep. It took an hour for me to get my whole head within the room, so that I could see the old man as he lay upon his bed. Would a madman have been as wise as this? And when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern, cautiously, very cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it so a thin ray of light shone out upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man that vexed me, but the evil eye. And every morning, just as the day broke, I went boldly into his chambers. I spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at midnight, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. To think, now, that never before that night had I felt the extent of my own power, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain the feelings of my own triumph. There I was, opening the door, little by little, and the old man not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea. And perhaps the old man heard me, for he turned suddenly in his bed as if startled. Now you may think I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were closed fastened through fear of burglars, and I knew he could not see the opening of the door. And I kept on pushing it, steadily, steadily. I had got my head in the room and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped on the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up from his bed crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For another hour I did not move a muscle. In the meantime, I did not hear the old man lie down. He was still sitting up in his bed, listening, just as I have done. Night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh, no. But the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew that sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from within my bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he turned in the bed. His fear had been ever since growing upon him. And now he was trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He was saying to himself, "It's merely the wind in the chimney. It is a mouse crossing the floor. Or it is nothing but a cricket which had made a single chirp." Yes, he was trying to console himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain. All in vain. For death, in approaching the old man, had stalked with his black shadow before him. And the shadow had now reached and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful significance of the unperceived shadow that caused the old man to feel, though he could neither see nor hear, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing the old man lie down, I resolved myself to open a little, very little, crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. Oh, you cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a thin ray of light shone out and cast full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I could see it with perfect distinctness, all a pale blue with a hideous veil upon it, which chilled the very marrow of my bones. But I could not see the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray precisely as if by instinct upon the damned spot. Now I have said that what you may perceive as madness is nothing but an acuteness of the senses. And now I say to you that there came to my ears a low, dull quick sound, much such the sound that a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But yet I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless, and I tried how steadily I could to maintain the ray upon the eye. In the meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker, louder, louder, every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder, every moment. Do you mark me well? Have I not told you that I am nervous? And so I am. And now, in this deep, dark hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of this old house, so strange a sound as this excited me into uncontrollable wrath. Yet, for several minutes longer, I refrained and kept still. The heart kept beating. Louder, louder! I thought the heart must burst. And then a new anxiety overtook me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's time had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and I leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once. I dragged him to the floor, and I pulled the heavy bed upon him, and I sat upon the bed and smiled gaily to think the job so far done. But the heart kept beating. For several minutes longer, with a muffled sound. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and I kept it there several minutes. I could feel no pulsation. The old man was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no longer. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe to you the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned. I worked quickly, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and then the arms, and then the legs. Then I took 3 planks up from the flooring of the chamber, and I deposited all between the scantlings. Then I replaced the planks very cleverly, very cunningly, so that no human eye, not even his, could detect anything wrong. There was nothing to wash up, no stain, no blood spot whatsoever. I had seen to all that. A tub had caught it all. When I had done with these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 gentlemen who introduced themselves with great suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard in the night by a neighbor. Suspicions of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was mine in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took them all over the house. I bade them search, and search well. I took them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, all secure, all undisturbed. And in the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought in chairs that I wished them here to rest from their fatigues, while I, myself, in the wild sagacity of my perfect triumph, placed my seat upon the very spot which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I felt singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted about familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. But still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but the sound continued, and it gained definitiveness, until at length I found that the noise was not inside my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale. But I talked more fluently and in a heightened voice, yet the sound increased. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such the sound that a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath. The officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued trifles in a high key, with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, in an excited fury, to wish them gone. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I raved. I foamed. I swore. I swung upon the seat in which I had sat and grated it upon the boards. But the noise grew ever more and continually increased. Oh, louder, louder, louder! But the men still chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no. No. They knew. They heard. They suspected. Oh, and they were making a mockery of my horror. I thought that then, and I think it now. But anything is better than this agony. Anything more tolerable than this derision. I could stand their hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt I must scream or die. And now, then, hark! Louder! 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 Villains! I shrieked. Dissemble no more! I admit the deed! Tear up the blanks! Here! Here! It is the beating of his hideous heart!